Rebecca Foster pressed her phone against her ear, her hand trembling as the voice on the other end delivered words that felt like a death sentence. Gate 19 at Chicago O'Hare hummed with the chaos of travelers rushing toward departures, announcements echoing overhead, the smell of coffee and fast food drifting through recycled air. But Rebecca's world had narrowed to a single devastating phrase. Claim denied. Experimental treatment not covered. No appeal possible. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I understand, she whispered, though she understood nothing except that her daughter was dying and she was powerless to stop it. She ended the call and stared at the screen, her vision blurring. Around her, families moved with purpose, couples laughed, business travelers typed efficiently on laptops. Everyone heading somewhere with hope. She was heading home to watch Lily fade. 6 months, maybe less, the doctors had warned. Without the experimental protocol, there was nothing left to try. She had sold their house, worked double shifts at the elementary school and weekend cleaning jobs, drained every account. It had all been for nothing. Rebecca pulled up Grace's number, her neighbor and the only grandmother Lily had ever known. The phone rang twice before Grace's familiar voice answered, warm and worried. Rebecca? Are you at the gate? Grace, they denied it. Her voice cracked. The insurance company, they denied the treatment. There's nothing left. She heard Grace's sharp intake of breath, then silence heavy with understanding. Oh, honey, I'm coming home. Tears spilled hot against her cheeks despite her effort to hold them back. I just want to be with her now, however long we have. We'll get through this, Grace said, but her voice wavered with the lie. There was no getting through this. There was only the countdown. Rebecca hung up and buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. She tried to muffle the sobs, ashamed of her public collapse, but grief demanded space. She thought of Lily in her hospital bed, drawing pictures of the world she would never grow up to see, her bald head wrapped in the bright scarves Grace had sewn, her smile so brave it shattered Rebecca's heart daily. David should be here. Her husband should be alive to help carry this impossible weight. But he had been gone 3 years, killed by a driver who ran a red light, leaving Rebecca to face this nightmare alone. Across the gate area, Marcus Alexander Way sat motionless, his gray suit impeccable, but his hands trembling in his lap. He had been preparing to board a flight to nowhere that mattered, running from the diagnosis that had been chasing him for 8 months. ALS, progressive, terminal. The doctors had given him a year, maybe less. His assistant James sat beside him, silent and watchful, the only person who had stayed through Marcus's slow unraveling. Marcus had spent his life building an empire, founding an AI company that revolutionized industries, accumulating wealth that newspapers obsessed over. But he had built it all alone, burned every bridge that mattered. His ex-wife had left him 15 years ago, exhausted by his absence. His daughter Sophia had stopped speaking to him 7 years ago after he missed her mother's funeral for a board meeting in Tokyo. He had destroyed every relationship in pursuit of success, and now success meant nothing at all. Then he heard the woman's voice breaking across the terminal. He turned his head slightly and saw her, hunched over her phone, tears streaming. He heard fragments through the ambient noise. Treatment denied. Coming home, however long we have. The words carved into him with unexpected force. This woman was losing someone she loved, and he recognized the desperation in her voice because it mirrored his own internal collapse. But hers was born from too much love, his from too little. James leaned closer. Mr. Way, we should board soon. Marcus didn't move. He watched the woman end her call and dissolve completely, her grief raw and unguarded. Something shifted inside him, a recognition he couldn't name. She was fighting for someone. He was running from everyone. She had loved and lost. He had never learned how. James, Marcus said quietly, his voice hoarse. I need to talk to her. James frowned. Sir. Marcus stood slowly, his legs unsteady, and crossed the space between them. The woman didn't look up until his shadow fell across her. When she raised her face, her eyes were red and hollow. You shouldn't waste tears here, Marcus said softly. She blinked, confused and defensive. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I overheard. He hesitated, searching for words that had always failed him. What if you didn't have to give up? Rebecca stared at this stranger, This man in the expensive suit with tired eyes and trembling hands. Who are you? Someone who's running out of time. Marcus gestured to the empty seat beside her. May I sit? She nodded numbly, too exhausted to refuse. Marcus lowered himself carefully and extended a hand that shook slightly. My name is Marcus Way. I have ALS. The doctors say I have less than a year. He paused, letting the truth settle. I heard you talking about your daughter. About treatment being denied. Rebecca's jaw tightened. Are you here to pity me? No. Marcus pulled a thin folder from his coat, opened it, and showed her documents, medical reports with words like terminal and progressive muscle degeneration. His driver's license. A business card that Redway Technologies, CEO and founder. I'm here to make you an offer. I don't need charity. This isn't charity. Marcus closed the folder and met her eyes directly. I destroyed my family chasing success. My daughter won't speak to me. I have wealth I'll never spend and time I can't buy back. But you're fighting for your child. You know how to love someone. His voice dropped, raw with admission. Teach me. Let me fund your daughter's treatment, everything she needs. In exchange, teach me how to be the father I never was. Rebecca's breath caught. You're insane. Probably. A faint, sad smile crossed his lips. But I'm dying alone, and you're losing someone you love. Maybe we can help each other. James appeared beside them, holding out another folder. Mrs. Foster, these are Mr. Way's medical records and financial authorization letters. Everything is legitimate. Rebecca looked between them, her mind spinning. This was absurd. A dying billionaire offering millions to save Lily in exchange for parenting lessons? It sounded like a scam or desperation or madness. Yet when she looked into Marcus's eyes, she saw something that stopped her protest, genuine brokenness. Why me? She whispered. Because I saw you breaking, Marcus said quietly, and I recognized it. I've been breaking for years, just better at hiding it. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of a young woman with dark hair and fierce eyes. This is Sophia, my daughter. She's 23. I missed her childhood, her mother's funeral, every moment that mattered. I can't fix that. But maybe I can learn what I should have known all along. Rebecca stared at Sophia's photo, then at Marcus. Her pride screamed to refuse. But Lily's face filled her mind. Lily's drawings, Lily's dreams of becoming an artist. 6 months wasn't enough. It would never be enough. If I say yes, Rebecca's voice shook. You don't just write checks and disappear. You show up. You sit through treatments. You prove you mean this. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll show up. Every day if you'll let me. She searched his face for deception and found only exhausted honesty. My neighbor Grace will never trust you. My daughter's doctor will think you're exploiting us. Then I'll prove them wrong. Marcus extended his trembling hand. Please, let me try to become someone worth knowing before it's too late. Rebecca looked at his hand, at the tremor that spoke of borrowed time, at the desperation that mirrored her own. She thought of Lily, of 6 months becoming maybe years, of miracles she had stopped believing in. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. Her name is Lily, Rebecca said. She's 8 years old, and she loves to draw. Marcus's grip tightened, warm and real. Tell me everything. The flight home stretched endless. Rebecca sat by the window, watching clouds drift below, Marcus's promise echoing in her mind. She had given him her address, Dr. Winters's contact information, details about Lily's diagnosis. He had listened intently, asking questions that felt genuine rather than transactional. James had assured her the medical team would contact Dr. Winters immediately, that authorizations would be in place within hours. It all felt surreal, like a dream she'd wake from to find herself still drowning. When she finally pulled up to the small rental house in their Wisconsin town, exhaustion pressed heavy on her shoulders. Grace waited on the porch, her silver hair pulled back, arms crossed with protective concern. Lily appeared in the doorway, thin and pale, wearing her favorite purple scarf wrapped around her bald head. Mommy! Lily's voice lit the evening. Rebecca caught her daughter in a careful embrace, mindful of bruises and tender skin. Hi, baby. Grace studied Rebecca's face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. Rebecca kissed Lily's forehead. Let's go inside. That evening, after Lily fell asleep, Rebecca sat with Grace at the kitchen table and explained everything. The stranger at the airport, the billionaire with ALS, the impossible offer. Grace's expression shifted from disbelief to suspicion to anger. A dying man wants to play house with our family. It's not like that, isn't it? Grace leaned forward. Rich people don't just hand out miracles. Rebecca, what does he really want? Redemption, I think. Rebecca rubbed her temples. He's estranged from his own daughter. He sounded broken, Grace. Genuinely broken. Before Grace could respond, Rebecca's phone rang. Dr. Sarah Winters, Lily's oncologist. Rebecca, I just received the most extraordinary call. Dr. Winters' voice carried professional caution. A medical team representing Marcus Way contacted me with unlimited authorization for Lily's experimental treatment. Is this legitimate? Rebecca's heart pounded. Yes. I need to meet with you tomorrow. This is highly unusual. I know. I'll be there. The next morning, a sleek black town car pulled up outside their modest house. Neighbors' curtains twitched. Rebecca watched from the window as Marcus emerged, moving slowly with James's subtle support. He wore a simpler suit today, less armor, more man. His eyes found her house with something like nervous anticipation. Grace opened the door before they could knock, her expression granite. Mr. Way, Mrs. Abbott. Marcus extended his hand. Thank you for letting me visit. Grace ignored the hand. I'm not letting you do anything. I'm protecting my girls. You hurt them, and your billions won't save you from me. Marcus lowered his hand, accepting the rebuke. Understood. Rebecca appeared beside Grace, Lily peeking around her legs. The girl's eyes widened with curiosity at the strangers. Lily, this is Mr. Way and Mr. Porter. They're going to help with your treatment. Lily stepped forward, her small face serious. Are you a doctor? Marcus crouched slowly to her level, his knees protesting. No, I'm just someone who wants to help. Why? The blunt question hung in the air. Marcus glanced at Rebecca, then back to Lily. Because I made mistakes with my own family, and I'm hoping to learn how to be better. Lily tilted her head. Are you sad? Marcus's throat worked. Yes. Me too sometimes. Being sick is scary. I imagine it is. Are you sick too? Lily's eyes dropped to his trembling hands. Marcus didn't hide them. Yes, I am. Lily's expression softened with recognition. Then we can be scared together. The words pierced something in Marcus. He blinked rapidly, nodding. I'd like that. Rebecca watched this exchange, her protective walls wavering. Lily had always seen people clearly, without adult cynicism clouding her vision. And she saw something in Marcus worth trusting. Come inside, Rebecca said quietly. They sat in the small living room, Grace hovering protectively, James standing near the door with careful neutrality. Rebecca explained the boundaries. Marcus could fund treatment, but he had to prove himself through presence. No publicity, no exploitation. He showed up, or he left entirely. Marcus listened without interruption, then spoke carefully. I'm checking into the local hotel. I'll be here as long as you need me. James's expression flickered with surprise. Marcus had never stayed anywhere more than a few days, always chasing the next deal, the next conquest. This commitment was unprecedented. There's only one hotel in town, Grace said dryly. The Pine Rest Motor Inn. You'll hate it. I'm sure it's fine. After they left, Grace turned to Rebecca. You're really doing this? What choice do I have? And if he's lying? If this is some billionaire game? Rebecca looked toward Lily's room where her daughter hummed softly, drawing. Then at least I tried everything. That night, in the Pine Rest Motor Inn, Marcus stood at the window overlooking the quiet main street. The room was small, worn, nothing like the penthouse suites he'd inhabited. James sat in the corner, laptop open, managing the empire remotely. You're really staying? James asked. Marcus nodded. I made a promise. You've made promises before. Not like this. Marcus pressed his trembling hand against the cool glass. James, I'm dying. And I just realized I've never truly lived. That little girl looked at me and saw someone scared, just like her. She didn't see money or power. She saw truth. His voice cracked. I want to be someone who deserves that kind of sight. James closed his laptop slowly. Then I'll help you. Whatever it takes. Marcus turned from the window. Thank you, old friend. Don't thank me yet. If you hurt that family, even I won't be able to save you from the consequences. Marcus smiled faintly. Good. That means you still believe I can change. Treatment began on a Tuesday morning at the regional hospital. Rebecca had been through this ritual dozens of times. The waiting room with children's drawings taped to walls, the antiseptic smell, the quiet anxiety of parents holding coffee like lifelines. But today felt different. Today, Marcus sat beside her. He looked out of place in the pediatric ward, his expensive watch and tailored clothes a stark contrast to the worn chairs and faded magazines. Parents glanced at him curiously. Marcus noticed their looks and seemed to shrink, uncomfortable with attention in this context. Dr. Sarah Winters emerged from the treatment area, her white coat crisp, her expression professionally neutral. She was a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes that had seen too much loss. "Rebecca," she nodded, then turned to Marcus. "Mr. Way, I need to speak with both of you before we begin." They followed her into a small consultation room. Dr. Winters closed the door and folded her arms. "I've reviewed the experimental protocol. With your funding, we can begin immediately, but I need to be clear about expectations." She looked directly at Marcus. "This isn't a guaranteed cure. The success rate is 30%. Lily will endure significant side effects. Money doesn't change biology." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "I understand," Marcus said quietly. "Do you?" Dr. Winters leaned forward. "Because families get their hopes up when wealth enters the equation. They think money buys miracles. It doesn't. It buys chances. That's all." "Then we'll take the chance," Rebecca said firmly. Dr. Winters's expression softened looking at her. "I've watched you fight for her for 2 years. You've never given up. I just want to make sure Mr. Way understands what he's committing to." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I'm not here to play hero, doctor. I'm here to learn what sacrifice looks like. Rebecca's been doing it alone too long." Something in his tone made Dr. Winters pause. She studied him, then nodded. "All right, let's begin." Lily was brought into the treatment room, her small frame dwarfed by the medical chair. Nurses moved with practiced efficiency, explaining each step. Marcus watched as Rebecca transformed into a caregiver, her movements fluid from repetition. She held Lily's hand, stroked her hair, whispered encouragements. The first infusion started, liquid medicine dripping through 4 lines. Lily was brave for 10 minutes, then 15. Then the nausea hit. She leaned forward, retching into the basin Rebecca held ready. Marcus watched helplessly as Rebecca supported her daughter, singing softly, a lullaby about sunshine and flowers. When Lily finally exhausted herself and fell into restless sleep, Marcus whispered, "How do you do this every time?" Rebecca didn't look at him, her eyes fixed on Lily's pale face. "You don't have a choice when it's your child. You just do it." The words settled heavy in Marcus's chest. He had always had choices. He had chosen board meetings over recitals, deals over dinner, empire over family. Watching Rebecca's unwavering presence, he understood for the first time what he had refused to choose. Over the next week, Marcus established a routine. He arrived each morning with coffee for Rebecca, grape juice for Lily once she could keep liquids down, and a new sketchbook because Lily filled them quickly. He learned small things. Lily liked her juice cold, but not icy. She preferred being read to rather than watching screens. She drew flowers when she was happy and storms when she was scared. He met Tyler, Lily's hospital friend, a 10-year-old boy with a bald head and superhero t-shirts. They played card games in the hallway, their laughter piercing the clinical atmosphere. Marcus watched them and saw something he had forgotten existed: genuine childhood joy despite suffering. One evening, as Lily colored quietly, she looked up at Marcus. "Do you have any kids?" Marcus's hand stilled on the magazine he wasn't reading. "Yes, a daughter." "What's her name?" "Sophia." "That's pretty. Where is she?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Far away. We don't talk much." Lily frowned. "Why not?" "I made mistakes. I wasn't there when she needed me." Lily considered this with the seriousness of a child who understood impermanence. "You should tell her you love her. People don't always get more time." The word struck Marcus like physical blows. He looked at this 8-year-old girl facing mortality with more wisdom than he had accumulated in 51 years. "You're right," he whispered. "You're absolutely right." That night, Grace stopped by the hospital with dinner for Rebecca. She found Marcus asleep in the uncomfortable chair beside Lily's bed, his hand near Lily's as if he'd fallen asleep mid-reach. Rebecca sat across from them, exhausted but watchful. "He actually stayed," Grace murmured. "He stayed every day," Rebecca replied softly. Grace studied Marcus's sleeping face, the lines of exhaustion and illness etched deep. "Maybe I was wrong about him. Maybe we both were." Later, After Grace left and Lily slept peacefully, Marcus woke with a start. He looked disoriented, then saw Rebecca watching him. "Sorry, I didn't mean to fall asleep." "It's fine. You've been here all day." Marcus stretched carefully, his muscles protesting. "Rebecca, I need to ask you something." "What?" "How do I tell someone I love them when I've spent years proving I don't know how?" Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "You start by showing up. You keep showing up. And eventually, maybe they believe you mean it." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what I'm trying to do." "I know." Rebecca's voice gentled. "I see you trying, Marcus. So does Lily." He looked at the sleeping girl, her small chest rising and falling steadily. "She told me I should tell my daughter I love her. That people don't always get more time." "She's right. I don't know if Sophia will even read a message from me." "Then write it anyway. Not for her response. For your own truth." Marcus pulled out his phone, staring at the blank screen. Months ago, he would have delegated this, asked James to draft something. But this couldn't be delegated. This had to be real. He began typing slowly, his trembling fingers making mistakes he had to correct. Words he should have said years ago finally taking shape in the quiet of a hospital room, learned from a dying child and her warrior mother. Because sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected teachers. And sometimes, learning to love means first learning to show up. Marcus's message to Sophia was simple. "I'm dying. I'm finally learning what matters. I'm sorry I learned too late." He pressed send before fear could stop him. 3 days passed without response. Marcus continued showing up at the hospital, reading to Lily, bringing Rebecca meals she forgot to eat. He didn't mention the silence from his daughter. Then, on Thursday evening, his phone lit up. Sophia had replied. "Where are you?" Marcus typed the hospital address with shaking hands. "Teaching a child about courage. Learning what I should have known." Her response came quickly. "I'm in Milwaukee. 2 hours away." Marcus stared at the screen, hope and terror warring inside him. Sophia arrived Saturday afternoon, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes, his eyes, filled with cautious distance. She found him in Lily's room, holding a sketchbook while the girl explained her drawing of a garden. "Dad." Marcus stood slowly, uncertain. "Sophia." They faced each other across years of absence. Lily watched curiously. "Is this your daughter?" Lily asked Marcus. "Yes." Lily smiled. "You should hug her. Hugs are important." Sophia's expression cracked slightly. Marcus took one hesitant step, then another. Sophia met him halfway. The embrace was awkward, fragile, but real. "I don't forgive you yet," Sophia whispered against his shoulder. "I know," Marcus replied, his voice breaking. "But I'm here now." Lily's treatment showed progress. Small improvements that Dr. Winters called cautiously promising. Marcus continued showing up, and Sophia began visiting weekly, watching her father learn what she had needed all along. One evening, Lily drew a picture, 4 figures holding hands under a bright sun. "Who are they?" Rebecca asked gently. "My family," Lily said simply. "The one I chose." Marcus looked at the drawing. Himself, Rebecca, Lily, and Sophia together, and understood finally that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about showing up for whatever future remained. Week 6 brought complications. Lily's fever spiked to dangerous levels, her small body rejecting the treatment protocol. Dr. Winters called an emergency meeting, her expression grave. "We need to pause the experimental treatment," she explained. "Her immune system is compromised. Continuing could be fatal." Rebecca felt her world tilt. "But the progress means nothing if we lose her now." Dr. Winters touched her shoulder. "We pause, stabilize, then reassess." Marcus watched Rebecca crumble, her carefully maintained composure finally shattering. She excused herself, stumbling toward the bathroom. Sophia looked at her father questioningly. "Go," Marcus said quietly. "She needs someone." Sophia found Rebecca in the hallway, sobbing against the wall. Without words, Sophia wrapped her arms around this woman she barely knew, holding her through the storm. Rebecca clung to her, grateful for any anchor. When they returned, Marcus was sitting with Lily, who looked impossibly small in the hospital bed. "Mr. Way says you're scared," Lily whispered to her mother. Rebecca knelt beside the bed, tears still wet on her cheeks. "I am, baby." "Me too. But we've been scared before." Lily's thin hand found her mother's. "We're good at being brave together." Marcus turned away, wiping his eyes. James appeared in the doorway, his expression concerned. "Sir." The board is demanding your return for the quarterly meeting. Marcus didn't hesitate. Tell them I resign. James blinked. Sir, effective immediately. I'm staying here. Marcus looked at Lily, at Rebecca, at Sophia standing protectively beside them. This is where I need to be. The resignation sent shockwaves through the business world. Headlines screamed about Marcus Way's sudden departure. Reporters called James incessantly, demanding explanations. Marcus ignored it all. His focus narrowed to Lily's stabilization, to learning how Rebecca managed hope and fear simultaneously, to tentative conversations with Sophia about childhood memories he'd missed. One afternoon, while Lily slept, Sophia asked, "Why now? Why her and not me?" Marcus met his daughter's eyes. "Because I was too much of a coward to face what I'd lost with you. It took seeing Rebecca's love for Lily to understand what I'd thrown away." He paused, his voice rough. "I can't undo the past, Sophia, but I can try to deserve your future." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "I watched you my whole life choose everything else. Watching you choose this," she gestured toward Lily's room. "It's the first time I've believed you might actually change. I'm trying. I know. That's why I keep coming back." Grace arrived with dinner, her presence a steadying constant. She'd softened toward Marcus, recognizing his genuine transformation. Tyler visited with his parents, bringing card games and laughter. The hospital room became less clinical, more like a gathering place for chosen family. Marcus's ALS progressed. His tremors worsened, his speech occasionally slurred. But he continued showing up, adjusting his presence to his declining capabilities. When he could no longer hold a book steady, he memorized stories to recite. When walking became difficult, he brought a wheelchair without complaint. Lily's fever broke on day 12. Her immune system stabilized. Dr. Winters cautiously reintroduced the treatment at a modified dose. "We're not out of danger," she warned. "But we're fighting again." That evening, Marcus sat with Rebecca in the cafeteria, both too exhausted for real conversation. "You kept your promise," Rebecca said quietly. "You showed up." Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm learning what should have been obvious. Love isn't a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day." Rebecca reached across the table, squeezing his trembling hand. "Thank you for choosing us." "Thank you," Marcus replied, his voice thick, "for teaching me how." Month 3 arrived with the weight of accumulated exhaustion. Rebecca had learned to measure time differently now, not in days or weeks, but in treatments, in Lily's good hours versus bad ones, in small victories against an unrelenting disease. The experimental protocol had become routine. Arrive at 7 in the morning, settle Lily into the treatment chair, hold her hand through the nausea, sing softly when the pain became too much, celebrate when she managed to keep down lunch. Marcus had become part of that routine too. He arrived before Rebecca each morning, coffee already waiting, having learned exactly how she took it after watching her doctorate with cream and sugar for weeks. He brought fresh sketchbooks for Lily, replaced her markers when they dried out, learned which nurses were gentlest with for insertion, and quietly requested them when possible. His own body betrayed him daily now. The tremor in his hands had spread to his arms. His speech occasionally slurred, words tangling on a tongue that no longer obeyed completely. Walking required concentration, each step a conscious choice his muscles sometimes refused. But he showed up. Every single day. James had relocated his operations to the small Wisconsin town, working from the Pine Rest Motor Inn, managing what remained of Marcus's empire remotely. The board had refused Marcus's resignation, instead granting him indefinite medical leave, perhaps hoping he'd return to his senses. He wouldn't. He had finally found his senses here, in this hospital, with this family. Sophia visited every weekend now, driving up from Milwaukee where she worked as a social worker. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. His daughter had chosen a profession built on caring for others, while he had spent decades caring for nothing but market share. She was everything he had failed to be, and he told her so during one of their careful conversations in the hospital cafeteria. "You became good despite me, not because of me," Marcus had said, his voice rough with regret. Sophia had looked at him for a long moment before responding. "Maybe, but I'm watching you become good now. That counts for something." It was more grace than he deserved, and he knew it. Dr. Sarah Winters had become more than Lily's oncologist. She'd become the steady voice of medical reality in a situation that invited magical thinking. She never promised more than data supported, never offered false hope, but never extinguished hope either. She walked the razor's edge between honesty and cruelty with practiced precision, which was why, on a Tuesday morning in month 3, when Dr. Winters entered the waiting room with an expression Rebecca had learned to read carefully, every person present held their breath. Rebecca sat forward, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. Marcus straightened in his chair, ignoring the protest from his deteriorating muscles. Grace stood from where she'd been pretending to read a magazine, her silver hair catching the fluorescent light. Sophia, visiting midweek for the first time, moved closer to her father instinctively. Dr. Winters closed the door behind her, a privacy gesture that could mean anything. Her face carried something Rebecca couldn't quite identify. Not the careful blankness of bad news. Not the sympathetic sorrow she'd worn when explaining why standard treatments had failed. Something different flickered in her eyes. The latest scans came back, Dr. Winters began, her professional composure cracking slightly at the edges. I've reviewed them 3 times. Had 2 colleagues review them independently. Rebecca's heart hammered so hard she felt dizzy. And the tumors are shrinking. Dr. Winters's voice strengthened with certainty. Significantly. More than we hoped. More than the data predicted. The words didn't register immediately. Rebecca heard them, but they seemed to float in the air between them, refusing to land with meaning. Marcus made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Grace's magazine clattered to the floor. Sophia grabbed her father's shoulder, steadying them both. How much? Rebecca whispered, afraid the question itself might shatter this fragile possibility. Dr. Winters pulled up images on her tablet, showing them side by side. This was 8 weeks ago. This is now. The primary tumor has reduced by 42%. The secondary lesions by 30 to 35%. Rebecca stared at the scans, the dark masses that had haunted her nightmares now visibly smaller. Her vision blurred with tears she'd been holding back for months, years, forever. What does this mean? Her voice broke. How much time? Dr. Winters sat down, bringing herself to Rebecca's eye level. I can't promise years. This disease is unpredictable, and we're still in experimental territory. But we're not counting months anymore, Rebecca. We're fighting for years. Maybe many of them. The waiting room erupted in a chaos of emotion. Grace sobbed openly, her careful strength finally crumbling under the weight of hope. Marcus buried his face in his trembling hands, his shoulders shaking. Sophia wrapped her arms around Rebecca. 2 women who'd barely known each other months ago, now clinging to each other in shared relief. Can I tell her? Rebecca managed through tears. Can I tell Lily? She should know she's winning. Dr. Winters said softly. Your daughter is a fighter, Rebecca. She's proving it every day. They found Lily in her room, drawing as always. She looked up when they entered, her expression curious at the sight of so many tear-streaked faces. Why is everyone crying? Lily asked, concerned. Rebecca knelt beside the bed, taking her daughter's small hands in her own. Baby, the medicine is working. Really working. The doctors say you're getting better. Lily blinked, processing this information with the seriousness of a child who'd learned too young that good news came cautiously. Does this mean I won't die soon? The blunt question stopped Rebecca's breath. She tried to shield Lily from the worst possibilities, but children understood more than adults wanted to believe. It means you're going to live, sweetheart. For a long, long time. Lily looked around at all of them, at Marcus with his trembling hands and tear-stained cheeks, at Sophia, standing close to her father, at Grace who'd been grandmother and guardian, at her mother who'd fought every impossible battle. We did it together, Lily said simply. Like a team. Yes, Marcus whispered, his voice thick. Like a team. That evening, they celebrated quietly in Lily's room. Grace brought homemade cookies that violated hospital policy, but no nurse had the heart to enforce rules today. Tyler visited with his parents, his own treatment showing progress, and the 2 children played cards with the easy joy of kids who'd found friendship in the hardest place. The adults watched, grateful for such ordinary miracles, for the sound of children laughing in a place defined by suffering. Marcus sat slightly apart, his position now habitual. He'd learned to observe this family he'd somehow joined, to witness their love without inserting himself too forcefully into spaces that weren't originally his. His body continued its betrayal. His hands trembled worse now, requiring both to hold a cup of water. His left leg occasionally dragged when he walked, the muscles no longer reliably responding to neural commands. Speech sometimes required concentration, words forming slowly on a tongue that stumbled over syllables. Time was stealing his body piece by piece, systematically shutting down systems with mechanical precision. The doctors had revised his prognosis downward. 6 months, maybe 8. The ALS was progressing faster than initial predictions suggested. But sitting here, watching Lily laugh with Tyler, watching Rebecca's face transformed by hope instead of haunted by dread, watching Grace mother them all with fierce tenderness, watching Sophia choose to keep returning despite years of reasons not to, Marcus felt something he'd never experienced in 51 years of relentless ambition. Peace. Not happiness exactly, though joy flickered in moments. Not contentment, which felt too passive for the active choice of showing up daily despite his deteriorating body. But peace. The quiet knowledge that he was finally doing something that mattered. That he'd found purpose beyond profit, meaning beyond market dominance, worth beyond wealth. Sophia approached and sat beside him, her presence now comfortable rather than careful. "You look happy," she observed. Marcus considered the word, testing it against his internal landscape. "I am," he replied softly, his speech slightly slurred but understandable. "For the first time in decades, I actually am. Even knowing." Sophia stopped, unable to finish. "Even knowing I'm dying?" Marcus completed the thought she couldn't voice. "Yes, because I'm finally living first." He gestured toward Lily and Rebecca. "I spent my whole life accumulating things that meant nothing. I'm spending my death learning what actually matters." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "I wish you'd learned it sooner." "So do I." Marcus took her hand carefully, his tremor making the gesture imperfect but sincere. "But I'm grateful I learned it at all. That you're giving me the chance to prove I learned it." "You're proving it every day," Sophia whispered. "Every single day you show up here, you prove it." Across the room, Lily looked up from her card game and smiled at them, a child's uncomplicated joy at seeing people she loved together. Marcus smiled back, his face muscles cooperating enough for the expression to feel genuine. He'd found his redemption in the most unlikely place. In a small hospital room, with a dying child teaching him how to live, and his own daughter learning to trust him again. Not because he'd earned it through grand gestures or dramatic transformations, but because he'd simply shown up. Day after ordinary day, he'd shown up. And in showing up, he'd finally arrived. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.